A tournament Alex Eala had never played in her life turned out for her anyway, and the broadcast noticed it before it mentioned a single thing about the tennis. Not the result, not the scoreline, the stands. That's not how these work. A post-match hit opens with the match, because the match is the reason the camera is standing there. And when a network skips straight past the reason it came, it's telling you the reason changed. And the crowd isn't even the part that did the real damage here. What did the damage came out about 3 minutes later, when she started talking about how her own family got to Ohio, because they didn't just fly in. They got routed, rerouted, and dropped in the wrong state entirely. And once you go back to what happened in Toronto a few weeks before this, Cincinnati stops looking like a one-off and starts looking like something the whole tour is going to have to plan around. So the question people keep asking is simple. Do you think Cincinnati was ready for this? Because once you hear what her parents went through just to reach that box, the answer gets a lot more complicated. Put it in the comments. And start with the very first thing said on that broadcast, which wasn't about her forehand, her serve, or her opponent. It was about who filled the seats.
Thank you, Chanda. Yep, got Alex Eala with me here. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Pinoy Power has come to Cincinnati.
Yes, it has. It has.
Filipino Power in Ohio said out loud on a network feed before anybody mentioned a point. That's a broadcast saying what the tournament schedule never planned for. And here's what makes it strange. This was her first time in this event, ever. No history here, no prior rounds, no local run that built a following over a few years the way it usually happens. Players earn a crowd in a city by coming back to it. She hadn't come back to anything. She arrived, and the seats were already full of people who'd been tracking her from somewhere else entirely, which is exactly what the interviewer put to her, that her fans had been following her across the world to get to this point. Think about what that actually means logistically. That's not a local crowd discovering a player. That's a crowd that travels. Then she got asked about the atmosphere, and she started answering it the way every player answers that question, with the polite version, the one about how great it felt out there. And then she stopped mid-sentence because she looked up.
Obviously, your fans have been following you all across the world. Alex, this is your first time here in Cincinnati. What was the atmosphere like for you?
It was incredible. It was so fun. Yeah, I didn't. This is my first time, so I didn't also kind of know what to expect. Yeah, look at them. They're cute. But I had a lot of fun. I think the atmosphere was great out there.
First time in the building, no idea what was coming, and then she can't finish her own sentence because she's busy looking at them. You can rehearse a quote. Every player on tour has the atmosphere answer loaded and ready before they sit down. What nobody rehearses is losing the thread of it halfway through because the thing you're describing is sitting right in front of you, being louder than your answer. That reaction wasn't media training. That was somebody genuinely caught out, which raises a harder question, and it's the one nobody in her camp seems to have an answer for. Who was supposed to prepare her for this? Because the match itself gave the broadcast almost nothing to work with. Her opponent had to retire. That's the flattest possible way to win a tennis match. No final game, no handshake at the end of a battle, no highlight to run. The interviewer even framed it that way, saying you never want to see an opponent retire, while pointing out Eala had been dominating before it happened. And watch what she does with that opening. She doesn't take the compliment first. She leads with wishing her opponent a fast recovery, says health is the #1 priority for everybody, and only then gets around to talking about her own tennis, that she found her groove and held on to it until the match ended. That's a 20-year-old handling a free shot at self-promotion by giving it away. Now put yourself in the broadcast chair. Your match story just evaporated. The result is a retirement. The tennis was one-sided, and the player you've got on camera won't even sell her own performance. So you go looking for something else, and they found something a lot heavier than a scoreline.
They had a tough journey here to Cincinnati.
Oh,
what did they have to go through?
Wow. So they had like a 16-hour flight. They stopped over at Taipei from Manila, and then they went to Seattle, and in their last leg, they got rerouted to Indianapolis, I think, because of the storm. And then they had to drive a couple hours. So it was a tough one. And but I'm glad I got to spend their anniversary with them. It's my dad's birthday tomorrow.
Ooh, happy birthday.
August is a big month for my family.
16 hours in the air. That's just the first number. Now lay the whole route out and do the math on it. Start with Manila to Taipei, which is the stopover, not the destination. Then there's Taipei to Seattle, which is the long haul across the Pacific and the bulk of that 16-hour figure. Now bring in the last leg, the short domestic hop that should have been the easy part, and a storm sent it to Indianapolis instead. Wrong city, wrong state, and they still weren't done, because from there it was a couple more hours in a car to actually reach Cincinnati. 4 separate movements across the planet, one of them a mistake, ending in a rental car on an interstate. That's not support, that's a second career. And here's the part that stings if you follow this sport closely. They did all of that to watch a match that ended early. Their daughter's opponent retired. Whatever they crossed an ocean and got rerouted to sea, they got a fraction of it. Nobody in that box got there easily, and nobody in that box got what they paid for. But that's not even the worst of it, because of what else was happening that same week. It was her parents' anniversary. Her father's birthday was the next day. She said August is the big month for her family. The anniversary, her dad's birthday, her brother's birthday stacked together. So this wasn't a routine trip that happened to hit a storm. This was a family choosing to spend their anniversary and a birthday in transit, in the wrong airport, in a car, so they could sit in a tennis stadium in Ohio. Say that out loud and it stops being a travel story. And now go back, because this wasn't the first time this happened, and the version before it was somehow stranger. Rewind to Rome first. That's where the Coco Gauff doubles partnership starts. And the way Eala tells it, she's reading the room the entire time. She's seeing the jokes online about the two of them. She's clocking the attention, but she doesn't know where the friendship actually stands yet, so she keeps quiet and scopes the scene. That's a player who's suddenly visible and hasn't figured out what to do with it. Move forward to Toronto and the scale changes completely. She's in one of the biggest cities and one of the biggest tournaments on the calendar, and what shows up in the stands isn't a flag and a few signs.
In Toronto, I got to go back to that. I mean, you had dinosaurs in the stands. Did you ever think you'd have an Ealasaurus?
An Ealasaurus? I know, that's crazy. A crazy name, by the way. But it was a very surreal experience in a city as big as Toronto, and a tournament as big as Toronto. So to have that community and that support was super surreal. Yeah.
You've been on
dinosaurs in the stands in Toronto, and a nickname built out of her own name to go with them, which she laughs at and calls crazy before landing on the word she keeps coming back to: surreal. That's the word. Not amazing, not incredible, not any of the standard ones. Surreal, twice, because a city that size and a tournament that size producing that kind of community around her didn't compute. Now bring it forward to Cincinnati, and the specificity goes up again. Toronto was costumes and noise. Cincinnati is dating. Cincinnati has her parents' anniversary attached to it, her father's birthday the following day, and a family that crossed 4 legs in a storm to be present for all 3 at once. Vague in Rome, caught on camera in Toronto, dated and documented in Cincinnati. One crowd is a novelty. Toronto and Cincinnati back to back is a different conversation entirely, and it's the conversation the tour hasn't had yet, which is exactly why the thing she wrote about her parents hits the way it does. Because at some point during all of this, she stopped letting other people narrate it. She'd already put it in public, in her own words, before any broadcaster got the chance to ask her about it. And when the interviewer read it back to her on air and asked her to improve on it, she couldn't.
Obviously, the tennis calendar just moves on, and you have to travel
really
with
does.
it.
It does.
It's tough. Your family's with you here.
Yes.
You shared such a special, beautiful note about your parents on their anniversary. You said, "Love is just too weak of a word." What would be a better way to describe it?
It's difficult because I think love is one of the words, the strongest words out there and the strongest emotions, which is why I chose to say, it's too weak of a word, because I think what they share is, it's indescribable, and it's what I hope to have in the future as well.
And what
too weak a word? That's her assessment of love, and the reasoning she gives is the part that lands, because she doesn't say love is a small word. She says the opposite. She says it's one of the strongest words there is, one of the strongest emotions there is, and that's precisely why she went past it, because what she was describing was indescribable, and the biggest available word still came up short. Think about that for a second. She reached for the heaviest thing in the language and then told you it wasn't heavy enough, and she says it's what she hopes to have herself one day. Then she's asked what her parents actually gave her, and she opens with a joke about how much time you've got, because the honest answer doesn't fit in a broadcast window. What she settles on is that they lead by example, and that they gave her and her brothers joy and comfort and everything parents are supposed to give. That's the whole engine of this story sitting in one answer. This isn't a player being carried by a crowd she found. This is a player who was built by 3 people and is now being followed by a country. So the question stops being why they came. Everybody knows why they came. The question is what she does with it from here. The tour doesn't wait. She's through to the next round in Cincinnati, and the calendar keeps moving the way it always does, which she's already told you she deals with by staying focused on the next thing. She's admitted she's only stolen pockets of time to appreciate any of this, never one big moment where it landed. She's 20 years old, and she's already handling it like somebody who knows the window closes. And the last thing that broadcast pulled out of her was a Rush Hour reference she'd been running with Goff, a movie from 1998, 7 years before she was born, which the interviewer flagged on air. A joke from a film she's too young to have seen, aimed at a Grand Slam champion she wasn't sure she could joke with a few months earlier. That's not a kid trying to fit in. That's somebody who already knows she belongs in the room. So here's what actually happened this week. A debut crowd in a city she'd never played. A family that took 4 legs in a storm to reach a match that ended early. And a word she couldn't find on an anniversary she spent in an American stadium. She's not being adopted by a country anymore. She's carrying one. So the question stands, do you think Cincinnati was ready for this? Because once you hear what her parents went through just to reach that box, the answer gets a lot more complicated. Tell me below. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens in the next round. And the Toronto story is on screen right now if you want the full version of how the dinosaurs got there.